scrappy people, thanks for stopping by my channel. This is another video in my favourite tools series. This video is on die cutting, manual die cutting, not electronic die cutting. That's a whole other topic. So today I will be talking about my Sizzix Big Shot and my Crafter's Companion diamond press. So first of all, let's talk about the Big Shot. So this is probably the most commonly used die cutting machine. It's available widely, you can get it in most places. I actually purchased this one at Spotlight in Australia. I think I even used a voucher on it, which is great. You can wait until they're on sale and get them quite reasonably. This is the turquoise version. It was pretty and it matches my craft room. I like turquoise, as you can see. But there are different colours. Stampin' Up also sells them. And there are actually different versions of the Big Shot, but this is the one I have. There's a larger one, there's an electronic one, but this is the one that I have. So first of all, let me talk about the plates that you need to die cut. So this machine will die cut from metal dies, and it will also die cut steel rule dies, the thicker ones, as well as embossing. So it actually comes with this one came with this multi-purpose platform. You can get them with a multi-purpose platform that's about half the length, but this is a really long one, meaning you can use large long dies in one pass on here. It has different tabs. So on the platform it talks about what you can do with each tab, and if you need to flip it, it'll give you instructions as to what you can do on what tab. So that's the multi-purpose platform. You also need cutting plates. These are acrylic. You can buy replacements. They're supposed to get like this, so when you run a die through, it actually cuts into the plastic. That's normal, and you might also hear a cracking sound. Mine don't crack so much because they're so well used, this pair, but when you first get them, the crack is quite pronounced. That's normal. So over time they do get bent and bowed. They're, you know, running through the machine under high pressure under a roller. So I have heard that you can bake them, or that you can just run them under hot water. I should probably run these under hot water with a toothbrush just to get out all the bits of embedded paper that are stuck in the plate, which can actually transfer and put a mark in the paper that you're trying to die cut or emboss. We don't want that. So these ones are pretty gungy. They're fairly well used. This is a metal shim. This provides more pressure. So instead of putting extra cardstock underneath your cutting plates, if you're cutting something that doesn't quite want to cut all the way through, this goes under the bottom plastic cutting plate to give you a bit more pressure. Don't ever use this as a cutting surface. It's not meant for that. And don't use it on top of your top cutting plate because it can bow again with the pressure. You don't want that. Ask me how I know. This is a magnetic platform. So this saves you having to take down your dies when you're die cutting. It's smaller, which is handy. I use this probably 99% of the time when I'm die cutting. I find it very useful. I just leave it in my machine with my plastic plates, and that's kind of how I leave it set up most of the time. So this plate is very, very useful. Now it does have magnets in strategic positions. You can still use a shim, and you still use your plastic plates with this, but it's another handy plate that I would recommend everyone with a Big Shot invest in. It's great. Hitting my light. This is the precision base plate. So that's a separate purchase, and you can see here it's used for intricate dies, not open dies, or will bend those. But this takes the place of your bottom plastic cutting mat. It's meant to have the impression of the die cut into it, that's normal, but it doesn't have any give, no flex. So that's what provides it with the cutting precision. The fact that it's sturdy, and your die just gives a really clean cut and comes out super easy, and I'll demonstrate that for you. So that's another good one to have. This also is really useful. This is a embossing mat. So what this does, it allows you to use your die to deboss an image into cardstock rather than cutting it through. So if you want to get double duty out of your dies, this is really good to have. Now I just wanted to show you that the plates actually come separately. You buy them in a 2-pack and they come nice and clear. This one hasn't been used too much, but they come nice and clear. Now what I'd suggest you do is have one cutting mat as your cutting surface and keep one fairly clean, so that if you're, for example, debossing, you're not going to get marks in your cardstock. So that's a tip. I've also got these long thin plates. So that's for when I use my long cutting platform and a long die. I can just use these plates and I don't have to worry about putting two smaller plates up against each other and missing spots in my cut. So they are useful. You can actually buy full size big ones as well, depending on what you want to do, or if you're making a lot of invitations or something, the full size one means you can put multiple dies on and cut those in one pass, which is useful. So that's the plates that I have and that I use for my Big Shot. The next thing I thought I would talk about is just some of the tools that really make die cutting easy, and they're kind of essential when you're die cutting. So there's three things that I use. The first is die snips. So when you get your dies, they're oftentimes joined together by little pieces of wire. So what you want to be able to do is actually snip off those pieces of wire close enough to the die so that you're not going to stab yourself. So these are really, really useful. You can get them in the hardware stores. They work just as well, just wire snips. I'll link where you can buy these, but they're really useful. A die pick. There are all sorts of different ones. This is a Tim Holtz retractable die pick because I'm clumsy and I stab myself, but this really helps you when you're trying to get pieces of paper out of a die. You kind of really need one of these. The other thing that I have is this magnetic bowl. My husband bought me this. This was some super cheap auto, I believe, here in Australia. I'll link where you can buy them. These are just a really good way to corral your dies and your die cuts, so you know you don't lose them on your desk. I'm sure we've all had that happen to us. So I'd highly recommend you have one of these plates to help you in your die cutting. Okay, so now what I will do is talk about the actual function of the machine as well as the different types of dies. So here I've got my magnetic platform, my metal shim, pretty much always use that, a bottom cutting plate, and then you need dies. So there's a couple of different types. These are steel rule dies, they're thicker, and with these you don't actually need the plate because they're the same thickness as the plate. So these will work in Big Shots, in Cuddlebugs. The brand of the die doesn't really affect your die cutting. It's about how the machine actually works. So what these steel rule dies are, let me just open this one. See how expensive things are? This is $43.99 in Australia. You US people would probably have a heart attack at that. But steel rule dies are very useful because they can cut through multiple layers of cardstock at once, or they can cut through fabric, they can cut through thin metal, they can cut through chipboard, they can cut through anything. So these guys are really, really useful. That's an example of the die. They have a foam pad and the die is embedded into that foam pad. So when you're cutting, it depresses the foam, so don't ever push on where the cuts are, you'll cut yourself. So that's a steel rule die. These types of dies, this is a new one I just bought. This is from Paper Smoochers. These thin dies, we tend to call them thinlets, which is actually a Sizzix term, but these thin dies will work in any cutting machine regardless of brand. So that's a thinlet. You've also got framelets. So this is dies that are open, that are a frame. So those kinds of dies will work in any machine on the same sort of setting as what a thinlet die would work on. With an intricate die, such as this particular one, with intricate dies, the best thing to use is the precision base plate. Don't ever use a precision base plate with an open frame die. It will bend them, because what the base plate does is provide extra pressure, and when it's running through it can actually curve your die. So it's only used for these types of dies, not these. So keep that in mind. Now what I will do is just quickly show you how the machine works. So you put your paper down, whichever way you want it, texture, non-texture, patterned, however it goes. You can put the die face down, or you can put the die face up and the paper on top. I don't do it that way because you can't see, so I like to be able to see what I'm doing. Put it down, top plate on. I'll just turn this around so I can actually use the wheel. Run it through. And there you go. You can see some of the bits are actually stuck in the die. That's where your die pick comes in handy, because on the back of the dies you've got these little holes and you can simply just poke it out and the dies will come out. The little die cuts will come out. So that's why that's really useful. I have to apologise for the lighting in here. I don't have very good lighting in this room. But you can see little die cuts that come out of there. Now, you can use die cuts for stencils as well. You can make longer lasting stencils by using acrylic. You can use throwaway stencils, one sort of use for ink or pastes or mists or whatever you want to do with these. Now, I was talking before about the die snips. You can see how these dies are joined together. See the little pieces of metal? So if you want to, you can actually use these and snip them apart. Now be careful when you're doing this because they can fly off everywhere. So do it over a trash can and just make sure there's no bits on the floor for little peoples to step on, but that's what these die snips are for. Now, when I talked before about this metallic tray, it goes in there and I'm not going to lose it. So my tiny little dies, if I actually had cut these apart, I've lost so many dies over the years by accidentally putting them in the rubbish, or they get flung across the room or something like that. So this just keeps them safe. And you can also just stick your die cuts in the tray as well and keep all your project together while you're working on them, so nothing gets lost. So that's actually a really, really useful tool, and I wish I had have bought one earlier. So that's how the machine actually works. Now what I'll show you is the precision base plate, so you can see how an intricate die works. So don't cut on this side because that's your instructions. Turn it up the other way. So you've got your, in this case, magnetic platform. This takes the place of the bottom cutting plate, so you don't need that when you use this piece of paper down. Okay, found it. So this is an intricate die because it's got lots of different little spaces, but it's usually intricate dies have a full backing, they're not open, so that helps you tell the difference between a frame die and an intricate die. This one's open, this one's enclosed. So if it's enclosed, you can use a base plate. So I've got platform base plate paper, intricate die face down, top plate, and just run it through. There we go. It's stuck to the magnetic platform. Now if I lift that up, look at that. It came out first go. I don't even have to use a die pick. That's why the precision base plate's so good. So if I pull that up, these are just falling out. I'm not even having to try, really. So the precision base plate is super useful. It's a worthwhile investment. It just makes things go much, much quicker. So you can see there how easily that die cut. And without this base plate, there might have been some little bits still hanging on in the paper, and to try and cut them out, it's terrible. It doesn't work real well. So I would suggest it's a worthwhile investment getting the base plate if you're using intricate dies. Now, I also want to talk about these steel rule dies, the thicker ones. If you look at the thickness of them, sorry about the light, they are pretty much the same. So you don't need this, you just need this. So if you put down your bottom cutting plate, they call them Bigs dies in Sizzix land, your cardstock on the top, and another cutting plate, run it through. Now you could do multiple layers of cardstock like I said, then you get your die cut. This one's just a little bit fiddly to get out because all the shapes in it, but that's die cut beautifully. So that's your Bigs dies. Now you can do fabric, burlap, cardstock, multiple layers of paper, pretty much anything you can think of, even thin metals you can cut with these dies. So they are more expensive, but they're heavy duty and well worth the investment. Okay, so now I want to show you how to use the rubber embossing mat to deboss images into your cardstock. So on the multi-purpose platform, you can't use it with the magnetic platform, it's too thick. So I need to open up tab 2 and go to tab 1, and it actually shows you that you can do it on this tab. So I'll pop that into the machine. Then I'll put my bottom plate, the rubber mat, my cardstock, my die, wherever you want it, top mat, and just run it through. And what you can see is the image has now debossed. It hasn't cut. So what you've got there is another use for your dies. So you can stretch what you can do with your dies and deboss them, and maybe even have a die cut with it, something like that. So that's kind of cool. Another use for your Big Shot machine. Now that pretty much covers most of the use of the Big Shot, except for dry embossing, using an embossing folder. So what I have here is a Sizzix Stampin' Up! Wood grain folder. If you open it up, you can feel that these designs are raised on the bottom and the top is impressed into the plastic. So when you put cardstock into the folder, you will get a raised design. So you can use the embossed side with the raised design, or flip it over and use the debossed side with the depressed design. So again, what I'll do is use the platform one on my, sorry, I have to open both platforms and use the base plate. I use my bottom cutting mat, the folder with the cardstock or paper in it, my top cutting mat. Now you don't want to use a shim when you're doing this because it will press too hard and it can actually crack through your paper, and we don't want that. So I'll roll it through. I'll just go backwards because I'm using my long platform. If you open it up, it reveals the design. So you can use a die cut and emboss it. I probably would die cut first and then emboss, otherwise it might flatten out the design, but you can see the debossed image and the embossed raised areas. Now this is useful to put ink or paint or wax or whatever you like over the top, but that's another use for your Big Shot machine. Now that pretty much covers off on the Big Shot. If anyone has any questions, tips, tricks, let me know. I will put links down below of where you can buy the Big Shot machine, but it's fantastic. It's such a workhorse. I love it. After having had the Cuddle Bug, they both work really well. I just like the weight and the size of the cutting platform of the Big Shot, so that's personal preference. Now what I will show you next is the diamond press die cutting machine. Now you're probably wondering why I've got the Big Shot and the diamond press. Well, the reason I have both is that I use the diamond press for when I go on crops or retreats because it's small, fits in my hand, it's the size of a coffee cup. So what it does, it's got this little opening, a crank handle just like the Big Shot, and little folders. So if something fits in the folder, you can die cut it. So you're not going to get big die cuts. You can't use framelets, things like that. But what you do is you push it down, lock it into place so it's stable. Then you've got your little folder. Mine's been quite well loved, as you can see. I will just grab my scissors and cut off a piece of my embossed cardstock to show you what you can do with an embossed image. Now it doesn't matter if the cardstock's longer and it actually fits out the end, that's fine. You can actually buy, and I'll show you those longer folders, so you can use longer dies, but you just pop your die in there. Now closed side forward goes into the machine, crank it through, and there you have it. Oh, I'm flicking them everywhere. You've got your die cut pieces, which happen to be also embossed. So I find this machine really, really useful for when I'm traveling. I don't like to be without options or without my things, so this machine, I'll just unlock that, is another way that I can have die cuts while I'm on the go. Now I have a video on the storage that I use for my diamond press dies. I'll link that below, but in here, this is just an A4 plastic document wallet from Officeworks. It's nothing fancy, but it holds a lot. So in here I've got not just the diamond press brand, but for example, here's a Kaisercraft one. Anything that's small enough to fit in that machine lives in here. So if I'm looking for a die, big ones are in my Rascog, small ones in here. Now, these are the diamond press brand. I've got a video on how I fused up these sleeves. I've just got them on magnetic sheets. So there's different types. This is a die only. You've got stamps and dies, so I've fused it up separately. Magnetic sheets, everything's together and I can find them. So that's really useful. Now, these are the longer, cutting folders that you can get. So these I find really good. I like the lawn fawn scripty words. I don't know if I've got any in here. I think I've got them in my other area. But you can put them through, so it's quite versatile. You can do more than you think in this little machine, so if you're starting out, it's a good option. It also has, oh my gosh, these cute dinky embossing folders. How tiny! I love them. Now I've just got them washi taped so they don't fall out because they're slippery little suckers, but this is just a like baseball card sleeve. They fit in there really well. They're all in one place. I can see them without having to dig for them, so that's good. And I also just keep some of the smaller stamp and die sets or nesting dies in there as well, and they fit just perfectly, so I've got room to grow. We always want that. So this is my storage for everything. So if I'm on the go, I just pick up this whole container, pop that in my tote, and off I go. I can die cut on the go. Yeah, so hopefully that gives you some ideas on die cutting. By all means, there's so many machines out there that I haven't used or tried. Research what you want. Some of them have much larger platforms, some are electronic, like the Vagabond or Sizzix Big Shot actually has a electronic version now. But die cutting is great fun. It just opens up a world of possibilities. You can cut any material, you can make it match whatever you want. You don't ever run out of supplies. Once you've got the die, you can use it over and over and over again, and I highly recommend it. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them, and I will link below where you can get the supplies and tools that I've talked about. So thanks for stopping by. I'll see you in the next series. Bye!